Hey, what up, y'all? Justin Gay, Seeds of Xanadu. Here we are. It's finally starting to get cool. And so today I'm going to be talking to you guys about growing microgreens outdoors in cooler temperatures. I live in Southern California. We live in 9B10A, that is my hardiness zone. Out here in the lower desert, it can actually get pretty damn cold, for California. We can get down into the 30s a lot of times. This time of the year, we're actually starting to fall right into the 50s at night, but we're still a lot of times getting into the 90s still, believe it or not, here in October. Those 90 degrees days are starting to kind of become more few and far between. We're hitting a lot more of the low to mid 80s and kind of playing around with some of the higher ends of the 70s. Nevertheless, at night, we're still getting down to the 50s. Oh, as well as the days are starting to get shorter, right? Even though we can still get into those 90-degree days, our days are now shorter. Therefore, that heat isn't there as long, right? So therefore, what we have to do is move a lot of our microgreens inside. I put most of them inside of the garage or the other grow room, if you will. Then there's some of them that actually stay fairly decent outside. So our brassica varieties, things like our broccoli, our radish, cilantro. So those guys seem to be able to hang out here just fine. In fact, this year is going to be the first year that I'm really going to be playing around with even the broccoli outside, as opposed to wheeling it in. And what I'm going to do is replace the broccoli with our pea. It will in back and forth because it seems like the pea doesn't really like the temp to drop too low, doesn't like to get too high. It kind of likes it just to be right in the middle, in the sweet spot for it. Things like our sunflower, however, it needs to be under lights pretty much from the fall to winter. As soon as those temps start dipping down to the 50s at night, yeah, the sunflower typically want to be inside. This week, we unfortunately didn't get the sunflower in there the way that they needed to be in there. So they're a little bit shorter than where I like to see them this time of the week. Nevertheless, we'll go ahead and throw those guys in there, give them a later harvesting date, and keep them under lights for 24 hours. That should boost them up a little bit more. As well as with the sunflower, you want to be careful because if you don't let them grow long enough, or you don't let them mature fast enough, or at least at the rate in which you want them to mature at, of course the shells will stay on the microgreen, and it's going to make a bottleneck in the wash, which is something that we just do not want. So the sunflower now go inside. They'll stay in there until the spring when it starts to warm up a little bit more. Then we'll put them back on the racks and let them rock full until the summer. The thing that we really have to be cognizant of right now during this time of the year, the length in which we allow our microgreens to grow. Like I was saying, the temperatures are now getting a little bit cooler, so now we actually have to expand the amount of days in which we're going to be growing our microgreens. So a lot of these guys, believe it or not, during the warmer time of the year, they can actually get ready in about 5 days. Things like the sunflower, the radish is probably about 6 days during the warmer times of the year. The broccoli and stuff is probably about the same as well. But now, because we're going into the cooler time of the year, these things are going to start turning into like the whole 10 to 12 day to even 14 day, especially when you look at things like the sunflower stuff. It's right there in the name, sun. So yeah, right now, all of our seeding schedules are going to be changing. Actually, I got to start seeding today. Today's Wednesday. So right now, we're actually going to be seeding for our harvesting trays, for our mixes and stuff like that, because they get harvested a little bit earlier. So we need to make sure that they're going to be ready to rock and roll. But those are the kind of things that you kind of want to keep in mind when you're growing microgreens outdoors. This is an indoor situation, you pretty much are going to be cool because you have a lot more control over the climate. So you can pretty much just set it and forget it and let it rock and roll. So the trade-off for me is I'm not going to be spending a lot on electricity. That being said, though, like I've mentioned in other videos, we have gone to solar. The solar is finally turned on. So we may end up going to a indoor grow. I'm not sure yet. I'm just so used to doing it this way. We'll see how it works. But up to this point, we've only been growing it outdoor, and that's really been helping us with the expense of growing microgreens. Right now, for the most part, 9 months out of the year, I'm not really worrying about any kind of electricity cost. I won't be really worrying about electricity cost anyway now because we're going, like I said, to solar. So don't get me wrong, there's still costs associated, but it's kind of it's a little bit different now. These are the sunflower. At this point, those sunflower right now are 7 days old. Those got seeded out these guys are 6 days old. We started soaking them last Wednesday, but they got seeded out last Thursday. Probably didn't end up popping or sprouting until Thursday night, Friday morning. So these guys are a little bit behind. See what I'm saying? They look like that now. When in the warmer times of the year, they would look like this right now. Now those sunflower are actually 2 weeks old. They've been carried over from the market. And that's another really cool thing too about when it gets cooler, we can actually hold our microgreens outside a lot longer, especially ones like the sunflower that actually do have a shelf life, because their flavor profile changes dramatically when they start getting their when they start getting in their true leaf, right? It becomes a lot bitter and unappetizing. It's a really cool thing when we can actually save these guys outside and not have to worry about putting them in a cooler. A little bit less work. That's another thing that's cool about the winter too, man. A lot less work, even out in the pot. Like, I don't have to do nearly as much weeding. Not that I weed a lot anyway, but yeah, I don't really have to weed as much. I just kind of have to make sure everything's looking good underneath the covers. We still do keep the shade cloth up, especially for the newly transplanted crops, as well as the freshly germinated seeded crops that's out there. The sun is still hot enough to zap them, so you know we want to make sure that they're cool out there. Anyway, back to microgreens. What's going to end up happening with these sunflower is that they're going to actually end up going into the mix. Things like the pea, we honestly carry them over pretty much throughout the year. We normally will end up carrying at least 9 over to the very next week, just so they're nice and bushy, like these guys are right here. Those guys right there are really nice. Then you can see those guys. Those will be the ones that we're actually going to be taking out to market this week, the smaller ones. This year, it just, again, we got hit with the perfect storm. I started having to go out on set a lot more, as well as the temperature kind of changed a little bit faster than I was expecting it to. Looks like everything is about a week off from what the forecast was saying, so I'm a little bit off there, but it's cool. We actually have plenty of pea right now that I can actually take those pea out to the market this week and be fine in case those pea didn't make it. In fact, that's probably what's going to end up happening. It really doesn't take that much to get your head wrapped around the idea, right? When it's cooler, you need a longer amount of time for them to grow. When it's warmer, you need a shorter amount of time for it to grow. Now, when it gets extremely hot, which it does out here, things slow down too. So they don't slow down nearly as much as when it is cold, right? So anyway, guys, just want to throw this video out there real quick. Just in case you are doing an outdoor grow, yeah, you want to have a place where you can actually put these things in at night. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and start putting these sunflower in the grow rack right now. This is also the time of the year when doing this little dusting for your sunflower really helps out a lot. See those things just popping off of you? I don't know if you guys can see it or not. Hopefully you can. But that right there, dude, just doing this makes a world of difference in the wash. I much rather sweep up sunflower shells than pick them out in the wash. Outside of course, them getting to the proper weight that we all want and love, getting them hulls off, dude, you want to get those hulls off as they grow. That right there is the #1 way to not have to deal with sunflower shells in the wash. You get them off before you even get them into the wash. And that really only happens when they're mature enough. Right now, I'm only gonna really be worrying about the harvesting trays, or one of the 1/4-inch trays. My 2-inch trays, those ones won't get harvested until Saturday anyway. That's the first day they'll actually get harvested. And hopefully we'll be able to get a good harvest out of them on Friday. For the most part, all the microgreens are gonna be in here. And it's really cool because inside of here, we actually can throw on the heater and keep everything nice and toasty at night. I try to keep things right about the 70-degree mark for the most part inside there. You can get into the 60s too, and I really don't seem to see that big of a difference in terms of their growth. One thing to note though, that I've actually tripped out on. A little bit more this year than I have pretty much any other year. The size of the tray, don't quote me on this here, but let me know if you guys have seen this for yourselves. These 1 1/4 inch trays, during the cooler times of the year, the microgreens don't seem to get as big as the ones in the 2 inch trays. Right? I'm assuming because the soil is getting cooler faster in these 1 1/4 trays than they do in the 2 inch trays. These sunflower were seeded out, soaked, the whole bit, the exact same day as these ones here in the 1 1/4 inch trays. So that's something that I'm definitely gonna be keeping my eye on, because if I can get them to grow faster, that's cool. But nevertheless, I'm gonna go ahead and just put them inside the rack anyway, and they should all grow evenly. But this is something that's kind of interesting, right? That's pretty much all I think I got on this subject, guys. So if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to drop them down below. Like I said, all the other things, all the brassicas right now, they seem to be doing just fine. The cilantro is doing fine. Radish is definitely doing fine. Radish seems to love it when it's cool. Check this out, man. That color though, way more intense this time of the year than when it's warmer. The color just pops every year. It's so cool. Whenever it gets cooler, I know that those Triton radish are gonna look dope. I mean, they all do for the most part, but the Triton radish definitely, they really stand out. So I like it. Peace out.